What's up, guys? Tyler Johnson here, Mutant sponsored athlete. I'm 5 weeks out of the Mr Olympia right now in the classic physique division.
Tell everyone how you got, like, how did you get into bodybuilding?
All right. So I got into bodybuilding pretty young. I was 17 years old. I didn't really take it seriously as a bodybuilder, but I did start training at 17. I was just finishing up high school. And I was a really small kid, to be honest. When I started, I was about 120 pounds. And I was a hockey player, soccer player, and I ended up getting cut from a AAA team, or asked to be a call-up because I wasn't aggressive enough and I wasn't big enough. And that was kind of what sparked this journey to start training and start getting bigger. And within the first month and a half of training, with no diet, no plan, no nothing, it was just me going to the gym and having a good time. I put on 20 pounds in my first month and a half, and kind of from that point forward, I knew that this was something I wanted to do. And bodybuilding at the time, though, this was about 13 years ago, so bodybuilding at the time wasn't as established. So men's physique didn't exist, classic physique didn't exist, bikini didn't exist, wellness didn't exist. Pretty much at the time it was just bodybuilding, open bodybuilding, and maybe a couple women's classes like figure and physique. I don't even think physique existed, so I think it was just figure, fitness, and bodybuilding at the time for women. And I started training, I was training for probably 2.5 years consistently. I wasn't that serious with my diet, but I was eating a lot more than I was prior because I wasn't really eating anything before I started training, maybe 1 or 2 meals a day, and they were very small meals. So I started eating a lot more when I started training because my hunger kind of spiked, and I kind of just got into this lifestyle a little bit more. And then I was putting on good muscle, and I was putting all this time and effort into the gym. And funny enough, it was my mom actually who suggested doing my first show. This is before we knew anything about anything. CPA didn't exist. At the time, it was OPA and CBBF, which are the Canadian organizations at the time. And so I did my first show. I was 19 years old. I was 19 turning 20. It was the Winston Roberts Invitational in Cobourg. That was October 19th, 2013. In men's physique, it was pretty much the first year after it just started. I think its inception was 2012, so in 2013 it was starting to pick up a little bit. That's when I did my first show. I won the overall at that show. Pretty much prepping for 4 weeks. I didn't take it that seriously. Dieting wasn't really a thing at the time. Coaching really wasn't a thing at the time. You couldn't find coaches at the time as easily as you could now because Instagram was just sort of developing. So it was just a much different time in bodybuilding. It was kind of just starting in terms of the growth of the sport and trying to get a little bit more mainstream. And Instagram can be thanked for that a little bit because it really helped grow the sport. And then so I did my first show 2013, and I won the overall, and from there I was hooked. And then going forward, I did the provincial show with 31 guys in my class. In 2014, I took second place. I think I was 20 years old. And then I did the national show 4 weeks later in Edmonton. I took 4th place in Canada. And then I think I did a couple more men's physique shows, the Arnold's and Nationals again. I didn't place very well in men's physique. So in 2016, that's the first year of classic physique. And I did my first classic physique show in Stratford, Ontario. That was April 2016. I won the overall there as well. And then I went to provincials where I took 3rd. Ended up taking a year off after that because I just wasn't really happy with kind of how I placed, and I deserved that placing. So it was just kind of a matter of I need to put more work in. And so I went from the provincial show, I took the year off, and then I came back in 2018 for the Toronto Pro Qualifier. It was the first year of the Toronto Pro Qualifier because the CBBF split and the CPA started. And then the whole kind of tier system switched up, and a lot of changes happened to the organization. So The tier system was different, where it used to go regional, provincial, national. It was pretty much now just regional and national / pro qualifier. So I did the Toronto Pro Qualifier in its first year in 2018. I took first, but I didn't take the overall, where the overall was the only person who got the pro card. And then I did the national show that year, where I took second in my class to the overall winner, who got his pro card. And then I took that, I didn't take the whole year off, but I competed the very next year, like the very next national show a year later, where I won my pro card in October. Funny enough, the same day that I did my first show, it was October 19th, 2019. So 6 years later to the exact day, I ended up turning pro. And then onward, I've been a pro ever since 2019. I did my first pro show 2021, October. I think it was October 23rd, 2021. It was the Hurricane Pro in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I took 4th place in my pro debut. And that for me was a big kind of feeling of validation, knowing that I deserve to be here and I am a pro and I fit in. And from there on, I just wanted to put a little bit more work in, because I thought, you know, if I fit in here, I believe I can win at this level. And so I took a little bit more time off and did the Toronto Pro 2022, which was in June. And I won that show. That was my first pro win. That was my second pro show. And I qualified for the Mr Olympia 2022, where I did not place. So I took 2023 off and came back this year in 2024, where I competed 3 times, 2 of which I won. So I won the Alabama, I think it was called the Body B1 Classic in Alabama. And then I won the Indy Pro Super Show 1 week later. And then I took 3rd place in Orlando Pro 1 week later after that. And then I've been just getting ready for the Olympia ever since. This year's prep is a little bit different, especially for the last 3 shows. I was eating a little bit more because I had a little bit more time kind of heading into it. My body fat levels were a little bit lower heading into the prep. I had a bit of a different approach, you know, working with a different coach, because I worked with a different coach for my pro debut, the Toronto Pro and the Olympia, and then I worked with a different coach for these, just for the Alabama show. So it was just a different approach, you know, different protocols, different programming, you know, less volume in the programming, just different. And the food was a little bit higher, the food choices were a little bit different. But now that I'm coaching myself, I've taken a little bit of both approaches and meshed them together. So I'm not eating as low as I used to eat, but I'm eating lower than I was for the last 3 shows, especially because my body's in a different spot. So it's important to adapt to where my body is now. And then I can kind of work with myself in terms of the protocols and do what feels right for me. Most importantly, to keep my health in check and just make sure that I'm responding really well. And yeah, so it's just a little bit of the best of both that I've had, and just doing what works for me. Key people in my journey. I mean, I've worked with good coaches throughout my career. You know, but for me, it's mainly just my parents, to be honest. They've been my biggest supporters ever since day one. Like, my mom was the first one to suggest competing, and my dad was my coach through hockey and soccer growing up, mostly hockey, to be honest. And you know, if there's anyone who can push me harder than anyone, it's my dad, to be honest. And so I just use that as my motivation throughout my prep now. I don't really have a coach to push me, so I push myself. But internally, I kind of have my parents screaming at me from the stands in the hockey arena and the soccer field. So to be honest, you know, I've great friends, a great support system. You know, I have a lot of people to thank throughout the journey, but if I had to choose, you know, who is the most influential, I would just say my parents. Like I said, I worked with good coaches, but, you know, like, coaches are, you know, are replaceable at the end of the day. And, you know, my parents have been there since day one, and they're my biggest supporters. They're the loudest in every room, and it means a lot to me to have them in my corner. The main thing going into the Olympia for this prep specifically was coming bigger. You know, after the 2022 Olympia, I really had an idea of how big these guys are and how much size I had to put on. It's very easy to think you're big in the gym, and you know, if you're always the biggest guy in the gym, you know, you think you're bigger than you are, and you're never as big as you think you are. You're never as lean as you think you are. And so seeing these guys at this level was very humbling and motivating. So I just decided to make sure I came in bigger for this, come in tighter than my last 3 shows. I thought my conditioning was not up to my standards, so that's kind of why I took over my own prep, so that I can push myself harder and just bring in, I have a vision of something I want to create, and I have a vision of the physique that I want to bring to stage, and it's very hard to rely on someone else to make your vision come to life. They can't see it, they can't feel it, and whereas I'm creating this vision and seeing it every single day and using this as fuel and using this as an opportunity to work harder and create. So bigger, you know, bring up the lats. That was kind of one of my main focuses, and one of the judges' feedback was bring up my lats, stop training my shoulders was one of the feedback. I want to bring up my arms a little bit, and I want to bring up my hamstrings and my glutes to just fill in that back shot specifically. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure I have no gaps. So, you know, going against the best guys in the world who have crazy body parts, and just look phenomenal, it's important that I'm not giving up any ground and making sure that I cover all bases. Well, this year, so I didn't place in 2022. So this year the goal is to place top 15. After 16, everyone's tied for 16th. So it's technically last place. Doesn't matter if you're technically 17th or 30th, you're all tied for 16. So my goal heading into this Olympia is getting a placement, getting a ranking, top 15 in the world. That's where I've been shooting for. And you know, for me, this prep, it's very easy to get comfortable, and especially coaching yourself, it's very easy to want to succumb to the comfort and what you've done before. And you know, my last prep, I was eating a lot more food. I've had preps where I've eaten, you know, 300 grams of carbs, whereas this prep, I'm already under that. I've had preps where I never went over 35 minutes of cardio. You know, I'm already pushing harder than that. So you know, the ideology of this prep is digging deep, and not just digging deep in terms of the physical aspect of it, but more so the mental, the spiritual, the emotional aspect of you know, being a competitor and being a coach and being a human being, and learning about myself, and digging deep is all about learning about myself, learning more and what I'm capable of. And I think it's important to, you know, try and push the pace and push yourself harder than you thought you could go. You know, like I said, it's very easy to get comfortable. So it's a matter of like finding what you're made of and really just making sure that you're leaving it all on the table. That was one thing with my last prep that I wasn't really happy about. I felt like there was more I could give. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just following the plan. I have a coach who writes the plan and I follow. And as an athlete, it's my job to follow the plan. And that's what I did. And you know, unfortunately, I just wasn't very happy with the end product. And you know, there were a lot, don't get me wrong, I still won my first show. And, you know, but going into Indy, I felt a lot better about my look after I took over my prep. And so this prep is about even pushing past that, and again, learning more about myself and bringing the absolute best that I can. Because that's if I don't bring my best, then I'm not placing. So you know, my mentality going into shows is always I'm running uphill as fast as I can go, and I feel like the competition is chomping at my heels. And the second that I slip, the second that I mentally give in to my emotion or the discomfort, as soon as I start to give into that, I feel like I've already lost my placing. I feel like 5 guys have already passed me, because I give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and I think that they're working harder than me, harder than they are, harder than everyone. And so it's important that I don't give up any ground, and I'm just always keeping my eyes forward, my head down, and keeping my feet moving forward. You know, one thing my dad would always scream at me is wheels, 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 you know. And it didn't matter how heavy my legs were. It didn't matter how exhausted I was. If there's 30 seconds on the clock, I got to give everything I have. And you know, I still remember like going into the dressing room after the games and just being completely gassed and huffing and puffing. And that's sort of the mentality and the physical output that I want to bring to this prep, and making sure that I just leave it all on the table and don't leave anything to chance.